You don't make up for your sins in the church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit, and you know it.
Welcome back, guys. Thank you for showing up again. It's a hot day in Staten Island. It's 100. It's probably going to be 110 tomorrow. So I shot up here. I just want to go visit a few mobsters here. Some you know. Maybe a couple you might not. Like Frankie Boy Cali, Tommy Bellotti, Jimmy Brown Fila, Frankie Cheech, and Cousin Eddie Garofalo, and Paul Castellano. So let's get it done.
I won't run from the storm. I arrive after it.
Alright, guys, so first up, we're going to visit Tommy Bellotto. Now, Tommy was a Gambino crime family mobster from Staten Island and one of Paul Castellano's, Big Paul's, most loyal men. He was best remembered, I think, because he was killed alongside Castellano at the Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan, December 16th, 1985. The hit that cleared the way for John Gotti to take over the Gambino crime family. He's right behind me. It's not too far to go. Bellotti was born in 1940 and was closely tied to Castellano for years. He was more of like a street level influencer and not like, or a bodyguard, not like a politician mobster, like Castellano was. But Paul did trust him, and that loyalty is what brought Bellotti upward in the family. I think what made Bellotti so controversial was Castellano's decision to elevate him. So when Carlo Gambino died, he appointed Paul to be head of the family. And not a lot of people like that. A lot of people thought that he was more of a politician type. He was more into shaking hands and doing that kind of stuff, like office type stuff, and not out on the street collecting debts and doing the drugs and stuff like that. I'll get into Paul later. He's we don't know where his grave is, but he's in the mausoleum, and they say he's just on the second floor. So let's go take a walk and let's go see his Tommy's grave. All right, so in the 1980s, Paul was under a lot of pressure, legal pressure, and he thought he was going to get sent away. So he reportedly wanted Bellotti to become the underboss in a leadership role that angered parts of the Gambino family, especially John Gotti. There's Mr. Thomas Bellotti. Because, many viewed Bellotti as unqualified for such a high-ranking position. Remember, he was only like a thug and enforcer like that, right? But on the night of him and Paul's assassination, Bellotti drove Castellano to a planned meeting at the Sparks Steakhouse. And the guy that planned this meeting, Frank DeChico, is buried right over there. And we're going to go see him too. But they arrived at Sparks Steakhouse on 46th. And as they arrived, the gunman moved in and shot them both. I mean, everybody's seen the pictures. Everybody's seen the news. I think the killing of Paul and his underboss, Bilotti, outside the Manhattan Steakhouse by assassins, led by Gotti. And then after which, everybody knows, Gotti took the reins, and he never looked back until he got convicted and spent all those years in jail, and then finally had cancer and passed away. But yeah, this is Mr. Thomas Bilotti, Tommy Boy. Alright, let's go see someone else. Alright guys, they're just starting to do, I guess, some lawn maintenance here. So hopefully I can get this done. Right behind me, a couple blocks over, is the guy we were talking about, Frankie Cheech DeChico. He was a Gambino crime family mobster who became one of John Gotti's most important allies during the plot against Paul Castellano. After Castellano and Bilotti were killed because of the setup by Mr. DeChico, he rose quickly and became Gotti's underboss. DeChico was not just a background figure, he was part of an inner circle that helped Gotti take power. In the mob world, that made him valuable, but it also made him a target. His death, tragic, as all mobsters' deaths are, came only a few months after that Castellano hit, April 13th, 1986. He was killed in Dyker Heights, which is a section in Brooklyn, when a car bomb exploded. So the bombing happened after he had visited James Jimmy Brown Fala, which we're going to go see too. Fala was also a Castellano loyalist and Paul Gambino capo. The bomb was reportedly meant as revenge for the murders of Castellano and Bilotti. But the plot has been linked to the enemies like the Genovese family and other factions. So let's go find him. Alright, so let's go take a walk. The Lucchese family was the other faction that I forgot to mention about. And including people loyal to the old mafia rule that bosses were not supposed to be killed without commission approval. Gotti himself was reportedly supposed to be there that day, but didn't show up. So DeChico became the one who died. He's over here somewhere. The car bombing was especially shocking because bombs were generally frowned upon in the mafia, the American Mafia at least. And they were considered, I guess, quote unquote, too risky because they could kill innocent people and bring massive law enforcement heat. You know, they didn't want that. Where you at, Frankie? Alright, here is Mr. Frank DeChico. So, what do we know about Frank so far? You know, he helped John Gotti rise. But that loyalty cost him his life, I think. And just months after Gotti took over the Gambino family, he was blown up. So, did Gotti do it? Did somebody from the Lucchese family do it, maybe? Or the Genovese family? Don't know. But I think the consensus is it was just payback for killing a boss when you're when you're not supposed to do it. This is beautiful, though. Mr. Frank, beloved husband and father, 1935 to 1986. Alright, guys. Mr. DeChico. Now, let's go see if we can find Mr. Fowler. So, we just got done Frank DeChico. And I wanted to do Jimmy Brown Fowler. So, I get in the car, and I mostly use findagrave.com. And most of the time they do have accurate GPS locations. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's exactly where I just came from. That's where Frank's grave is. And then I just say, what the hell, let me go look, make sure it's not an error. And I go up to Frank's grave, I see him, and then I turn around, and boom, there's Jimmy Brown. So let's talk about Jimmy Brown. He was one of the most powerful, low-profile Gambino crime family members. He was like the kind of mobster who didn't need headlines to have influence. You know what I mean? He was born in... Shit. It helps to memorize this stuff sometimes. 1919. Yeah, because I just saw it on his grave. And became closely tied to Carlo Gambino, which we know is the namesake of the Gambino crime family. It's just beautiful out here. He reportedly was serving as his bodyguard and driver before becoming a major figure in the family, so to speak, right? Fowler's power was tied heavily to sanitation, like garbage hauling, the industry in New York. Ruggiero. Nah, the Ruggerios are buried at St. John's. But for decades, mob influenced sanitation. Like, you didn't think, sanitation and mob went hand in hand, just like the concrete business, right? Just like the longshoremen. It was a major money machine, and Fowler was considered one of the key Gambino figures in that world. His crew, his influence, it stretched through Brooklyn, Staten Island, Manhattan, New Jersey. Where am I going? All right, I'm going to turn the camera around so you can see all this stuff. And still working out the kinks. There we go. So Fowler was closely connected to that Castellano era. And on that night that Castellano got murdered, him and Tommy Bellotti, Castellano was reportedly headed to the meeting at Sparks Steakhouse where Fowler was expected to be involved. So I think that makes Fowler part of it. Part of it as in, the background of the whole steakhouse hit. Where are you, buddy? But Fowler, I see you. He's right over there. But he survived the Gotti takeover. Even though he was tied to Castellano, Gotti kept him around because Fowler controlled valuable rackets. And then, look. Here's Frank again. Frankie boy. But as usual, law enforcement catches up. In the 1990s, the late 1990s, Sammy the Bull Gravano became a government witness. Fowler was implicated in murder-related racketeering activity, but he later pled guilty to, I think it was conspiracy to commit murder, and received a prison sentence. So here's the Fowlers. Here's his son, James. And here he is. And I'm assuming that would be his wife, Margaret. But like you see here, Fowler died in '99 while in a federal prison in Texas. Turn around, you'll find Mr. Fowler. Alright, so who's next? Let's go. So this cemetery has a lot more to see than just the mobsters. Here's a family plot that you guys probably didn't know was here. Scorsese. And it's presumed that this is where he'll go after his death. So I'm at the mausoleum. There's 2 levels, but there's two buildings. And I know for a fact, right there-ish, you guys remember comedian Richard Jeni? He's buried here. But look at this view they have, guys. And tell me this ain't wonderful. Look at that. Right on the water. Absolutely beautiful. So, let's go see if we can find them. I can't stop looking at this. Gorgeous. Now look. There's the bridge. It's either the outer bridge or the Verrazano. I'm not sure. But that's the bridge that goes from Staten Island to Perth Amboy, New Jersey. But, like I said, here is Mr. Richard Jeni. You can't really see it, but it's Richard John Colangelo. Right. Let's go find Mr. Garofalo. Where are you, sir? Alright, so I gotta come back again. So here's Ed, Cousin Eddie. So they called him Cousin Eddie. And there's 2 Eddie Garofalos. But this Cousin Eddie was in the Gambino crime family. This is pretty. And of course he was from Staten Island, like everybody is. But he was best known for 2 things. His connection to Sammy Gravano and his role in construction-related rackets. He was married to Fran. Frances is right here. Now, Fran is Sammy Gravano's sister, which made Cousin Eddie Sammy's brother-in-law. That family tie is why he was often called Cousin Eddie. Sources described him as a Gambino member / captain who was active in New York construction and connected to business schemes. His name did come up in several major mob cases, especially like in the middle of the 1980s. He was tied to business dealings with Gravano, including a Brooklyn nightclub called the Plaza Suite. Later, federal prosecutors said Garofalo participated in the racketing conspiracy, which he did. In 2007, the United States Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, the federal court down in Lower Manhattan, announced that he was described as a Gambino soldier, not like a captain or anything like that. And they sentenced him to 360 months, or 30 years, on murder, murder conspiracy, and extortion charges. And I think one of the biggest accusations against him involved the 1990 murder of his cousin, Edward Eddie Garofalo. Prosecutors said that Garofalo helped lure him to his death. He was also accused in connection with a plot to kill Sammy after Gravano became a government witness. Everybody hated Gravano for doing that. And he comes on YouTube, and he has a channel where he's this and that, and nobody likes him. There's a sit down, there's a 2-hour interview with Ruggiero, Fat Andy's son. Watch that. And then there's also a sit down, I think it's like an hour and a half long, with John Gotti Jr. He's got some pretty words to say about this guy too. So that's it. Let's go. One more shot around it. Here we go. Alright guys, so did a lot of searching and I found Frankie Boy Cali. And look what's behind me. He's still got a beautiful view too. And right around the corner, to my left, there is a marker, mausoleum marker, right? Grave marker for a person with the last name of Castellano. Whether it's him or not, I don't know. But he's supposed to be on this level. So, we'll see. So, let's go see Frankie. Look at that. Also, let me show you this real quick. If you guys are having trouble, each wall will have this. Building 2, side A, building 4, side B. People left their trash. So, here's Frankie Boy. He died an old man. So let's sit and talk about Frankie Boy. So he was a reputed boss, or acting boss, I would say, of the Gambino crime family. In my opinion, one of the most important modern mafia figures connected to Staten Island. Unlike John Gotti, Cali wasn't flashy. He was known as quiet, low profile, old school. Which is, I guess, part of why his murder shocked people so much.
Now to breaking news from overnight, a mob boss murder. The reputed head of the Gambinos, one of the most notorious crime families in this country, killed right in his own front yard. ABC's Whit Johnson is on the scene there in Staten Island. And Whit, you gotta say, this sounds like a scene right from a mob movie.
Absolutely, Amy, that's right. Good morning to you. The reported target of this assassination, 53-year-old Francesco Frankie Boy Cali, murdered in cold blood, steps from his front door, his wife and children home at the time. Cali, the reported mob boss of the infamous Gambino crime family, shot multiple times in the torso around 9:30 last night here on Staten Island. One 911 caller telling authorities that he was then run over by a blue truck. This is significant because it's the first brazen killing of a mafia kingpin in New York going back decades. 1985 was the last. Paul Castellano killed in front of a restaurant. That really paved the way for John Gotti to then take over the crime family, which he ruled with an iron fist until he was eventually convicted of murder and racketeering in the early 90s, later dying in prison. As for Cali, police right now have no suspects, no murder weapon, and they're still searching for that blue truck. Guys.
Okay, Whit, thanks very much.
He was born in 1965 and had strong ties to the Sicilian side of the mafia world. And he was often described as part of the Gambino family's more traditional, low-key, I guess, generation, which was like less, I guess, public attention, less media showmanship, and more behind-the-scenes influence. That made him very different from Gotti, from the Gotti era, where the boss became almost a celebrity. So, there's my ugly face again. So, by the 2000s, 2010s-ish, he was widely reported as one of the leading figures in the Gambino family. He had a federal conviction, right? State, yeah. Connected to extortion. So, conspiracy, or I think it's extortion conspiracy. But compared to all the other mob bosses, he kept a much quieter public profile. I think that is why some people saw him as a symbol of the quote-unquote newer mafia approach. Stay out of spotlight, avoid cameras, and keep business moving quietly. So let's talk about his death, because he was an older man. It was March 19th, 2019. Outside his home in the Tot Hill section of Staten Island. A pickup truck reportedly struck Cali's parked Cadillac, drawing him outside like a fender bender kind of thing. And then after a confrontation, he was shot multiple times and later died at Staten Island's University Hospital. Francesco Cali. At first, because of Cali was a reputed Gambino boss, I think many people wondered if his murder meant a new mafia war was started. Who knows? But I think authorities later said that the killing didn't appear to be a traditional mob hit. The man they arrested was Anthony Comello. And from reports, he was described as having no underworld ties. And then the case took a strange turn involving conspiracy theory beliefs, and some sort of, I guess, personal fixation rather than a mafia power struggle. I think that's really it that I remember about Mr. Frankie Boy Cali. His murder was still historically huge because it was widely described as the first killing of a New York Mafia boss since Paul Castellano was assassinated. And I think that instantly connects Cali's death back to the same Staten Island Gambino history, right? So, Mr. Frankie Boy. So we're gonna go see Mr. Castellano in 2 seconds. Alright, Francesco Frankie Boy Cali. So let's move on. I want to go show you that Castellano thing, and I guess we'll get into him too, because he is very interesting. Somebody's leaking. You can smell the death. It could be him, but they said his grave is unmarked. So it could be either one of these. But he's in here somewhere. So let's talk about him. His name was Paul. They called him Big Paul because he was a big dude. When he died, he was the boss of the Gambino crime family before, John Gotti took him out. He was born in 1915, and he rose straight up the family. But partly because he was connected by blood and marriage to the old leadership. And he was also related to Carlo Gambino. And then everybody knows after Gambino died in 1976, Castellano became boss of that family. It's still beautiful here. But he was different from the flashier street bosses. He'd like to present himself, I think, as more of a businessman boss than a street gangster. And his power, I guess, was tied to big money rackets, construction, unions, trucking, labor influence, and some legitimate looking businesses. He lived in the huge house. I don't know if I got pictures of it, but if I do, I'll pop it up right here. He called it the White House. It was a big mansion in Tot Hill. But inside the family, not everyone respected him. So some Gambino members saw Castellano as, I don't know, not too bright. I don't think I would say not too bright. Maybe not like in connection with the street crew, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he knew what they were doing. I don't think he gave a shit, just as long as the money kept coming into his house. And Paul, they didn't like him too because Paul was a cheater. Come take a look at my face one more time. And that shoot, it's right back there. He was a cheater. For years, he was involved with cheating on his wife with the maid. And the maid came out later and was saying that Paul couldn't get it up. He had a little issue. So he would pop the blue ones like it was candy. But I think the culmination, the tension grew worse after the death of Neil Delacroce. I visited Neil Delacroce at the St. John Cemetery. He's in one of those volumes. That's who people wanted to be the boss, Delacroce, because he was the underboss. And Gotti loved Delacroce. He was like a mentor, and Delacroce was like a, like a father figure, I guess. And when Carlo Gambino said, "I want Castellano," it just pissed everybody off. And I think the only reason why he did it was because of the marriage and the blood relation. I don't think it was anything else. But what Neil was respected, was a very respected underboss, and a major protector of John Gotti's faction. John had his own crew, and he was okay with John doing what John wanted to do because John made a lot of money. But I think Castellano's decision to elevate Tommy Bellotti, and we just visited Tommy. He was his driver. So he went from driver to underboss. Shit just doesn't work that way. It only made things worse because many mobsters didn't see Bellotti as qualified for such a powerful role. But as we all know, December 16th, 1985, Castellano went to the Spar Steakhouse in Manhattan for a meeting, which was, he was supposed to see Mr. Falla. We just left Mr. Falla, and it was arranged by Frank DeChico. We just left Frank DeChico. And we know as he arrived, gunmen came out, they had long trench coats, they had those like Russian hats, and they just came up and just started shooting. Everybody's seen the video, the news, the pictures. It was quite horrific. I think that was the most famous mob hit in American history. In 1982, John Gotti was convicted on multiple charges, including ordering the murder of Castellano and Bellotti. So, everybody's intertwined. Everybody knows everybody. I guess it's just the same old, same old. So, let's take a look at this. I doubt it's him. But, just to have a reference, he could be right up here. But he's on this level. And that's going to be it for me today in Staten Island. If you like this video, please subscribe. It's completely free. It helps. It really does help. Even comment. Oh, also, if you guys plan on coming out here, be careful, because every single step has crap all over it, like feces. I think that ain't abduction. I think there's like wild dogs or the geese down here who really know how to shit. I think back to where we were, right? Alright guys, until next time.